Dear friends, welcome back. Let us continue our discussion on knowledge organization. In the last session, we discussed about what is knowledge, universe of knowledge, features of universe of knowledge, and how the subjects evolve. What are the various modes of formation of subjects? And we discussed about what is knowledge organization, what are the various knowledge organization systems, and we started discussing about choral classification, its evolution, its features, something like that. Let us continue the class. And Ranganathan in his prolegomena to library classification, the one who is known for his dynamic theory of classification, he has categorized the process of preparing a classification scheme into three phases: idea plane, verbal plane, and notational plane. So anyone who is interested to develop a scheme of classification should go through all three stages. Idea plane, where you have to collect all the important keywords related to all the subjects. You have to have some idea of how you are going to organize various subjects. And secondly, verbal plane. Once you have decided how you are going to organize various concepts, you should decide upon what is the exact term, what is the exact keyword, what is the preferred term, what is the descriptor you are going to make use of in your classification scheme. And thirdly, so you got some idea, some principles of organizing, then you got exact words. After arranging the words, you need to give some artificial numbers called notations. So these are three stages. So Ranganathan has given guidelines on how you can go ahead with each and every one of these three planes of work. Fine, good. So to guide us, Ranganathan has given normative principles. So if you go to science, we have well-established theories, laws and all. But in social sciences, we have normative principles. They are normative principles because we find that they are useful. So we are following, that's it. So the normative principles include under its gamut, the basic principles of thinking. We have got 6 basic laws. Then we have 5 fundamental laws which are applicable to any subject. You take library science, 5 laws of library science. Then comes, if you take the first order of the division of a major subject, for example, you take library science, classification is one major division. So whatever rules you are going to adopt for classification, they are called as canons. So canons of classification, 43 are there. Then if you go very deep into classification, under classification, you got many different headings. One heading is how to arrange various components of a single array. So you got principles for that. So we have got around 22 principles for Healthful sequence. Then comes when you want to do actual work in the field of classification, you need to base your classification scheme on postulates and principles for facet sequence. So altogether we had 13 postulates and principles for facet sequence. So all are principles, all are rules, but depending on the place or level at which you are using a particular rule, the name changes. The principle for applicable for an entire subject is called as fundamental laws. The principles which are applicable at the first division of a main class is called as canons. The principles that can be used for or which can be used for dealing with issues in the second division of main class is called as principles. Fine, but all are normative principles. Good. What are the basic laws? Law of interpretation. It has got around 1008 principles taken from Nyaya Kosha. Whenever there's a conflict between 5 laws of library science, something like that, you can go to law of interpretation. Then comes the remaining laws, law of impartiality, which states that whenever you want to take a decision on a particular thing, the decision should be based on some principle. You cannot arbitrarily, just like that, you cannot take a decision. So in a particular title, 2 personality items appear. So you cannot just like that decide this will be the first one, this will be second. No, your decision should be based on some principles like wall picture principle. So any decision you need to take on a particular issue should be based on some principles or not based on any arbitrary, just like that, temporary provisions. Then law of symmetry, it means that when two different equal concepts are taken into consideration, when one concept is given an importance in a particular place, the other concept is also should be given in the another place. So both are equal, so they should be given due importance, maybe at two different places. Law of symmetry. Then law of parsimony, it says that you should be economical. Don't waste space in your classification scheme, or don't waste space in writing classification numbers. You should have economical way of writing these things. So many schemes, in order to reduce the length of the schemes, they have reduced chronological device, subject device, geographical device, telescoping of array. All these things are created to ensure economy in the classification schedules. So chronological device, you make use of time. Subject device, you take any subject and use it. Geographical device, you make use of space. Telescoping of array. Okay, what is an array? You take a particular concept, you use a quality or a feature, you will divide them. The resulting classes, when they are coordinate, is called as an array. So what is telescoping of array? So when there is no need to have two different arrays, though you have two different array of component ideas, these two arrays are combined together and they are formed as a single array. That is called as telescoping of array. For example, when you talk about the geographical isolates, number one stands for the world. Fine. So only world is there. One world is there. And this one world is divided into many continents like America, South America, North America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Antarctica, something like that. So all the continents are first order division of the world. So world is belonging to first array, and all the continents belong to second array. All the countries belong to third array. It goes like that. But if you see colon classification, number one, which stands for the world, and number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which stand for various continents. So they are all kept in a single array. Though they belong to two different arrays, they are kept as a single array. So that kind of concept is called telescoping array. So all these things are done to save space in classification schedules. Then comes law of local variation. So whenever you feel, you can have your own variation in your library. For example, you can use 2 for mother country and 3 for favorite country instead of writing the full number for other countries. The law of osmosis. See, we say whenever there is a need for reclassification. So when you are moving from one classification scheme to another classification scheme, for example, you want to move from CC to DDC or DDC to Library of Congress classification or UDC to DDC, something like that, no? You have to follow the principle of law of osmosis. Fine. So these are the basic laws. Good. Then comes canons of classification. So we have canons, the normative principles for idea plane, for verbal plane, and the notation plane. Let us see them one by one. So idea plane, we have some canons called canons for characteristics. Fine. So when you're having some ideas, your conceptual presentation of components, what are the various characteristics you need to use? So whenever you want to divide a universe, you need some characteristics to divide the universe into 3, 4, 5, or 6. You take classroom, you need a C, characteristic C. You need a C called gender to divide the students into male and female. You need a C called height to divide the children into low height, medium height, and very too much of height. Or you need a C called performance in the examinations, high score students, medium score students, low score students. So you have to employ the characteristics for the purpose of dividing the chosen subjects. So how the characteristics should be, okay? It says about characteristics that you are going to employ for dividing your universe. Good. First one is canon of differentiation. It means that whenever you are using a canon, a characteristics that should give rise to at least 2 classes. For example, there is a student of list of students. You use a characteristic called gender. we can really divide them into boys and girls. But imagine you are using one quality called how many of you are having head, you comments on a separate line. Those who are not having head comments on a separate line. Do you think that it will be possible for you to divide the class into two? That's not possible. So first canon is the quality that you are going to adopt should give rise to at least two classes. Firstly. And secondly, relevance. The quality what you are going to use should be relevant for the purpose. See, for example, you go to your class, your purpose is to select some children for running race. So you cannot go and ask the children, those who got more than 80% marks, please come forward, we are having a running race. No, that is not the quality that can be used. See, the children, those who are running very fast, please stand up. We are having a essay writing competition tomorrow. So you have to see what is the characteristics to be relevant for your classification. Second point. And thirdly, the quality that you are going to use for dividing the knowledge, it should be definite as attainable. For example, if you want to divide a group of authors based on their date of birth, it is possible. You know the date of birth, at least year or century you can divide. For example, if you have 100 authors of which 40 are still alive, if you are going to make use of the quality called date of death, is it possible? You cannot ascertain it. So that kind of characteristics should not be used. And fourthly, canon of permanence. So whatever quality, whatever characteristics you are going to use for dividing the knowledge, that should be permanent forever. You have to choose such kinds of characteristics that can last for a long period of time. Good. Then comes canons for succession of characteristics. See, when you are dividing a universe, you may not need just one characteristics. You may need 2 or 3 characteristics to divide a particular piece of universe of knowledge. So when you are using more than one characteristics continuously, and what are the qualities that particular continuous characteristics possess? One is canon of concomitance. See, when you are using 2 characteristics, both should not give the same array of subjects as a result. For example, you are asking 100 students to stand in a line. On what basis? On the basis of 2 characteristics, age and date of birth. You see the fun in it? Both age and date of birth will give the same results. Both will arrange the children only in the same line. But if you're using height and age, sometimes you can have 2 different sets of people, 2 different ways of arranging same set of students. So your canon should be concomitant. Then canon of relevant succession. See, you want to divide a universe based on 3 or 4 characteristics means there are different ways of arranging these 4 characteristics. For example, you take a subject literature. Ranganathan has used 4 characteristics: language, form, author, and work. So 4 characteristics. So what is the order in which these 4 C's are to be used? People say there are more than 60 different methods are there for arranging these 4. But Ranganathan has chosen this particular order. What is the order? First language, then form, then author, then work. First English language, then drama, then Shakespeare, then as you like it. So this should be the order, relevant. So any order, whatever you choose for your classification should be relevant. And thirdly, consistent. See, unless the entire purpose of classification changes, whatever order you decided for the succession of characteristics should not change. The succession should be consistent forever. Good. Then canons for array. I told you what is an array. So you take a particular piece of concept, you use a characteristics, you divide the universe. The resulting classes, when they are coordinates and they are of equal status, it is called as an array of subjects. See, what are the conditions to be fulfilled by an array? That's a question. Canon of exhaustiveness. That means whenever you are forming an array, the array should be able to and should accommodate all the concepts, whatever to be placed by its immediate universe. For example, there is an immediate universe called special libraries. Okay. Under special libraries, you are going to form an array of various kinds of special libraries. So this canon says that when you are arranging such a kind of list, that array should not omit any kind of special library. All kinds of special libraries are to be identified and placed under the concept called special libraries. Okay, fine. That is an example. Canon of exhaustiveness. The array should be exhaustive. It should include everything of the immediate universe. Then comes canon of exclusiveness. It means that if you take a particular single item and isolate, the isolate should belong to only one array and it should not belong to more than one array. So that is the principle of exclusiveness. Then canon of helpful sequence. So whenever you are going to arrange various components or isolates of an array, you should arrange all the isolates of an array in a very, very helpful way. For example, you take India, for example, you take India. So India is going to be divided into various states. How all the states can be arranged? You should have a kind of mechanism to decide how helpful all the states can be arranged. Fine, good. Then comes canon of consistent sequence. That means once you decide a particular order, okay, it should be forever to be followed. For example, if you take Dewey Decimal Classification, we have something called add to instruction. If you're following add to instruction, you will never change anything. The thing will be consistently used in all the subjects. So there should be consistent sequence of the components of an array. Fine, good. Then comes principles of helpful sequence. So as I told you, you have one particular concept called students in the class. You divide the students into three categories, okay, based on their performance in sports: high achievers, medium achievers, and low achievers. How to divide, how to decide whether low achiever should come first or high achiever should come first? You have to arrange different parts of flower. You have to arrange different parts of the building. How and what order you can arrange all these parts? To do so, we have a lot of principles. Okay. For example, later in time or earlier in time. So if you take classification schemes, the classification schemes can be arranged based on the time when they were established. The earliest scheme gets first number, the latest scheme gets the last number, or the reverse, that is later in time or earlier in time. Then comes later in evolution or early in evolution. If you take the origin of religions, we cannot say that a particular religion was established in a particular year. It took many years for religion to become a religion. So based on evolution, okay, you can arrange the religions. Then based on spatial contiguity, which I will discuss a bit later, increasing or decreasing quantity. For example, when you arrange the libraries, they say village library, then city library, then state library, then national library. It is based on the quantity, based on the number of readers you are going to serve. Village library is less number, city library is more number, state library is still more number, national library is still more numbers. So increasing quantity, even reverse also can be possible. Then comes increasing or decreasing complexity. For example, one-dimensional geometry, two-dimensional geometry, three-dimensional geometry. The increasing complexity subjects are arranged. Then comes canonical or traditional sequence. See, in olden days, when the Vedic people or the later kingdoms, they had our pioneers, they fixed a particular order for a subject. For example, if you take mathematics, they say that algebra should be given first, geometry second, something like that. Some traditionally confirmed order of subjects are available. So we are not going to change those orders. We are going to use same order which was proposed by our pioneers. So that kind of arrangement is called as canonical or traditional sequence. Then comes increasing or decreasing literary order. It is based on, see, for example, in India, you take more amount of literature is published on wheat. So wheat should be given first number. Second highest amount of literature output is available on rice. So rice should be given second number. So based on the literary warrant, based on the quantum of literature available on a particular subject, the items ought to be arranged. So that's called as increasing or decreasing literary warrant. Then comes alphabetical sequence. When nothing is available, go for alphabetical sequence. Arranging all the works of a particular author, you can follow alphabetical sequence when no other sequence is available to you. Good. Okay. Let me come back to spatial contiguity. Whenever you are arranging various components of an array, if space is involved, then you can make use of any one of these tools. Principle of bottom upwards. So when you're arranging different parts of a plant, either you can start from the root, you can come to the flowers, or you can start from the fruits, you can go down to roots, either bottom upwards or top downwards. Principle left to right. For example, if you go to foreign countries, the roads are arranged in a particular style. There is a place for the animals, there's a place for human beings, the place for two-wheelers, then four-wheelers, then high-speed vehicles. So this is order. So when you want to arrange the different sections of the road, either you can follow the principle of left to right or right to left. Fine. Principle of back to front. See, for example, you take house. When you enter the house, gate is there, then entrance, then reception hall, then bedrooms, then kitchen, then backyard. So when you want to arrange your house, different parts of the house, either you can follow the principle of back to the front or front to the back. Principle of clockwise and anti-clockwise. When you want to arrange all these stars, all the Rasi and all, no, you can follow this clockwise or anti-clockwise direction. Principle of periphery to center. For example, if you want to arrange different components of your hand, either you can start from periphery and go to center. For example, skin, then you can have tissues, then bone. Or you can start from the center, you can come to periphery. Center means, for example, if you take an egg, you talk about a yellow color component, then you can't talk about white color component, and you talk about the shell. Either from periphery to center or center to periphery. Then principle of increasing or decreasing distance. See, for example, you want to arrange all the planets of solar system. How you can arrange based on the increasing or decreasing distance. So whenever space is involved, we can make use of all these spatial contiguity principles to arrange various components of an array. Good. Then what about the chains? I told you what is a chain. When you are dividing a particular concept by using succession of characteristics, you get a subordinate and coordinate class that's called as chain. For example, Asia, then India, then Tamil Nadu, then Tirunelveli, then St. Xavier College. This is a kind of a chain. So what are the qualities to be fulfilled by a chain? First condition, first canon, canons of decreasing extension. When you are reading a chain, the top to bottom, the extension of the class should decrease and intention should increase. So obviously, India is a very broader concept. St. Xavier College is a very small concept. When you start from India, you're coming down to St. Xavier College, the extension decreases and intention increases. So that is the way a chain should look like. Canon of modulation. It means that whenever you are forming a chain, you should not miss even a single link of the chain. That means each and every link which is supposed to be in a chain should be made available in your classification scheme. That is canon of modulation. Good. Then comes verbal plane. What is a verbal plane? You're going to make use of words, terms to describe your ideas. Okay. What kind of words you need to select? Canon of context. It means that whenever you want to know the meaning of a particular term in a classification scheme, you should understand the meaning of that particular term, taking into account the immediate universe of knowledge. You should have the immediate universe and then you should understand the meaning. For example, if there are numbers like 1, 2 red, 1, 3 orange, 1, 4 green. What do you mean by this red, orange, green? It can be red apple, it can be green apple, it can be orange, it can be anything. But how to know the meaning of these individual words? You should look for the immediate universe. What is the immediate universe for 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4? 1. 1 is the immediate universe for 1, 2, 1, 3, and 1, 4. It says light. It means we are talking about red light, we are talking about orange light, you're talking about green light. So a meaning of a particular term should be interpreted based on its immediate universe. That is the meaning of canon of context. Then comes canon of enumeration. If you want to find out the scope or limit of a particular term, you should read all its lower links. For example, you want to know what is in India, you should look down for all the links. All the states of India will become part and parcel of India. How do I know that all these states are in India? You have to know that we are following the canon of enumeration. Under India, whatever states are enumerated, all these things are part and parcel of India. So if you want to know the scope or extent of a particular concept, you should go and see all the lower links which are incorporated, which are included immediately under that particular concept. Fine. Canon of currency, whatever term you are going to use should be current, should be currently used by the specialist of that particular subject. You have to use only make use of current terms, not absolute ones. Canon of reticence, it says that whenever you are going to use a particular term, the term should not be subjected to any criticism. For example, in DDC long back, they made use of the term called minor authors. So you know very well, a minor author who started his career recently may become major author in the course of time. So authors didn't like the word minor authors. So later on, it was removed. So the terms you are using in the classification scheme should not be subjected to critical, should not hurt the feelings of others. Good. Then comes notational plane. When you talk about notational plane, you're talking about the numbers and the representation of subject headings. So canon of synonym, it says that each subject should be denoted by one and only one class number. But if you take colon classification, number 2 is used for 2 items. So you can use number 2, colon classification, space isolates. Number 2 can be used either for your favorite country or for India. This is a clear-cut violation of canon of synonym. Canon of homonym, each and every class number should represent one subject and one only. In classification schemes like Library of Congress classification and bibliography classification, they have used only one classification number to denote many subjects. That is clearly a violation of canon of homonym. Good. Okay. Then comes canons of mnemonics. So mnemonics means memory to aid. Whatever you are using to help you to remember something, that is called mnemonics. Ranganathan has prescribed 4 different kinds of mnemonics: alphabetical or verbal mnemonics, A for apple, M for maize, W for wheat in agriculture. So you're using the alphabet to remember. So this kind of mnemonics is very, very minimal. Scheduled mnemonics, that means one particular term number wherever it appears will denote the same concept. For example, you take subject device or you take chronology device. For example, you take India, number is 44. Whether history of India, geography of India, physics in India, computer science in India, library science in India, or agriculture in India, mining in India, religion in India, only 44 is used. This is an example of scheduled mnemonics. These mnemonics are already scheduled. It is available in a tabulated form. Wherever they are used, they convey the same meaning. Good. Same way, common isolates. Common isolates, for example, there is a common isolate for dictionary. Okay, K, small k for dictionary. Language dictionary or subject dictionary, medical dictionary, chemical dictionary, same K, no other word digit is used. So such kind of scheduled mnemonics are there in colon classification. Then comes systematic mnemonics. That means, see, whatever order in which the components are arranged in the array based on the principle of helpful sequence, the same order, all the components are to be arranged in the classification scheme. That's what we call as systematic mnemonics. That means the classifications you arranged and what you arranged as per the principles of helpful sequence, both should be same, not deviating from each other. Then comes seminal mnemonics. So Ranganathan says that, see, there are a lot of synonyms, 5 or 6 words, though the word is different, though they are used in different subjects, they all will mean the same thing. In that case, seminally they are all same. So Ranganathan suggested the use of seminal mnemonics. For example, Ranganathan used number 5 to denote all seminally equal concepts like energy, radiation, liquid, water, ocean, ecology, plan, emotion, crime, all these things have got number 5. So that kind of allotting a single digit to represent many concepts that may appear in many subjects that may have almost a seminal meaning is called as seminal mnemonics. Good. I think you're clear. Let us move on to mapping up subjects in Dewey Decimal Classification. You know very well, it was proposed by Melville Dewey long back in 1876. It is an almost enumerative classification scheme. That is, almost each and every number you need for denoting the subjects of your library collection can be taken straight away from Dewey Decimal Classification. Lot of ready-made numbers are given. And it is a hierarchical scheme where you talk about the higher level items, then components are included. For example, you have got 500 for natural sciences. It is divided into physics, chemistry, biology, botany, zoology, all the divisions. Hierarchically, they are arranged. And Dewey followed Pew notation. He used only Indo-Arabic numerals. Only numerals 0 to 9 are used. No other alphabets are used. Colon classification is following mixed notation. We are having Roman alphabet, small letters, capital letters. We have Greek letters. We have punctuation marks. Many different types of notations are used. But Dewey Decimal Classification is following Pew notation. And there are 10 main classes starting from 00, Generalia, we end with 900, Geography and History. So the entire universe of knowledge is divided into 10 main classes. And each and every main class is again divided into 10 divisions. And each and every division is divided into 10 sections. So there are 10 main classes, there are 100 divisions, there are 1000 sections. So 10 main class called the first summary, 100 division is called the second summary, and 1000 sections called as third summary. Fine, that's clear. For example, if you take 500 Pew Science, it's divided into 10 main classes, 500, 510, 520, 530, up to 590. If you take 540 Chemistry, again it is divided into 10 categories, 540, 541, 540. This way it keeps on going around. Fine. So first edition was published in 1876 with 42 pages. 10th edition 1919. 15th edition is called as standard edition. Then only in the 17th edition, they introduced area table and space isolates. 20th edition was published in 1989. 21st edition was published in 1996. 22nd edition in 2003. In fact, there was a first edition to be produced in the context of web environment. Then 23rd edition, which was published in 2011, and that is the most recent unabridged edition, which is available in 4 volumes. In fact, DDC 22nd edition, they had removed table 7. Till edition 21, we had 7 tables in DDC. In DDC 22nd edition, table 7, which was meant for a group of persons, was removed. And table 5, which was previously called as REN, racial, ethnic, and national groups, is renamed as simply ethnic and national groups. What are the editors? First to third editions, Melville Dewey was editor. Then 21 to 23rd, John Mitchell was editor. And 24th, the present current editor is Mikhail Panzir. And you know very well, from 1988, OCLC takes care of publishing DDC, Online Computer Library Center, OGIO. Fine. DDC is also publishing abridged editions. First abridged edition was published in 1894. Latest edition is 15th edition, which was published in 2012. What is structure of DDC? Edition 21, there's in 4 volumes, 4,000 plus pages. First volume gives introduction and it gives all the 7 tables. Volume 2 schedules 0002599. Volume 3 is again schedules 600 to 999, 600 technology to 999. Volume 4 is meant for relative index with manual. And DDC is following, as I told you, it follows inverted Baconian model. First 10 main class is called as first summary. 100 divisions are called as second summary. And 1000 sections are called as third summary. And we had 7 tables. Table 1, standard subdivision, something equal to common isolates, which can be applied to any subject. Table 2, area notation. Table 3, which can be used only for subdivisions for individual literature. Table 3 has got 3A, 3B, 3C. 3A is meant for individual authors. 3B is meant for more than one author. And 3C is to be used whenever there are some instructions in 3B. Fine. Table 4 for individual languages, table 5 REN, table 6 languages, and table 7 groups of persons. Good. And DDC 23rd edition, it was published in 2011. It has got 4 volumes, 11 sections from A to K. Sections A to G is equal to volume 1. Volume 2, sections H and I from number 001 to 599. Volume 3, 600 to 999, section J. Volume 4, section K, relative index. In the first volume, as usual, it has got all the introduction, glossaries, manual, and all the tables, all the 6 tables. In the DDC, you can find different kinds of entries. Usable numbers, the numbers which can be used by a librarian to classify a particular book in the library. Unusable number, I'm sorry, this number cannot be used because it is removed, it is discontinued, it is taken to another place. So this number should not be used. Unusable numbers are there. Then comes unassigned numbers. Indeed, some numbers are kept vacant so that in future, the new additional subjects will be allotted these vacant numbers. Optional numbers. Sometimes the DDC gives an optional number. If you want to use, you use this number. Otherwise, go and use this number at a different place. So optional numbers are there. Then comes centered headings. So whenever you feel that a set of numbers are common, not only to one main class, but to 2 or 3 different main classes, or 2 or 3 divisions, you can have all those items in a particular place. These headings are usually given in the center of the page. So these numbers can be taken and used not for a single class number, but for a group of class numbers. Normally, centered headings are preceded by greater than symbol. Fine. And finally, we have hook number entries. The hook numbers are those numbers which will not stand for a particular subject. Fine. For example, this number called 265.9, it is equal to other Christian rights. So if you don't know what are the other Christian rights, you should go and see down 265.91, 92, 93 for the individual Christian rights. Fine. So these kinds of numbers are called hook number entries. Good. And in DDC, we can come across 17 different types of notes. Okay, to help the librarians to classify document properly. 17 different types of notes are available. And these 70 notes are given under 4 different headings: scope and content notes, inclusion notes, cross-reference notes, and notes that explain changes or irregularities. To mention a few, we have definition notes that give definition for a particular term, scope notes that gives a scope, the limitation or the area of limitation of a particular term, number built notes, how number is built, farmer heading notes, what is the farmer heading under which this particular heading was used, variant name notes, what are the various different terms that can be used to represent the same concept, class here notes, including notes, class elsewhere notes, see reference notes, discontinued notes, relocation notes, do not use notes. So these are different notes that help the librarians to have a simplicity in classifying things. Okay. Then in DDC, there is something called a precedence table. For example, there is a compound or complex subject heading. So when you are trying to get number for this particular subject in DDC, DDC gives you 2 or 3 numbers. But you cannot give all the 3 numbers, only one number you have to use. How to decide what is the number I have to choose from the available 2 or more class numbers? That is to be decided based on the precedence table, which tells you this is the order in which you have to decide. Fine, good, good. Then there's something called EDUG, European DDC User Group. OCLC acquired DDC in 1988, as I told you. And there's a committee called DCEPG, Dewey Decimal Classification Editorial Policy Committee, which takes all the policy related decisions. And you know very well, equivalent to DDC, we have Web Dewey, the web version of Dewey Decimal Classification. And Web Dewey 2.0 was published in 2010 using the latest 4th generation of editorial support system. Good. Then comes UDC, mapping of subjects in UDC. You know very well, UDC was developed by two advocates, Paul Otlet and Henry Law Fontaine in 1895. They had taken 5th edition of DDC, which was published in 1884. Based on DDC 5th edition, they developed UDC. And the English edition was published by British Standard Institute as a standard called BS 1000. And the first edition of UDC was called as Handbook to the Universal Bibliographic Repertory. It was published in 1904. And the 6th edition is called as UDC International Medium Edition. It was published in 2 parts. The first part, we had all the tables for form, tables for place, tables for this and that, common isolates, tables, system and tables, and the schedules 0 to 9, which was published in 1985. And the second part of the UDC called Index, it was published in 1988. Good. See, I read something called Medium Edition. What is that? See, UDC is available in 3 different editions. The full edition, all the 2,20,000 entries will be available. Medium edition, around 30%, around 70,000 entries will be available. Abridged edition, 10%, around 20,000 entries will be available. In all the 3 different editions, UDC is available. And UDC is almost faceted classification because they've got a lot of synthesizing tools with them. And there are 10 main classes starting from 0, ending with 9. But in 1963, class 4, which was meant for linguistics, was removed. And it was merged with the main class 8 called literature. So now the class number 4 is left blank so that any future new subjects can be added over there. UDC has got 2 different kinds of auxiliary tables. One is common auxiliaries and other is special auxiliaries. Fine. Apart from schedules, auxiliaries are there. Common auxiliaries. One is common auxiliaries, the auxiliaries which can be used for, which can be connected with any subject, any number. They are called common auxiliaries. Now we have got 2 different methods of designating common auxiliaries in UDC. One is sign, another is subdivisions. What are signs? Your plus symbol to add non-consecutive numbers. So 57 plus 59 plus 64, all the 3 can be added together in a single subject. Then slash to add consecutive numbers. For example, there is a subject which deals with the 51, 52, 53 numbers. You can write 51 slash 53. It means all the consecutive numbers can be merged together using slash. Then colon is to indicate the relationship that exists in 2 subjects. 51 colon 53. Mathematics and physics. Subgrouping, whenever you want to subgroup a main group, then subgroup you can make use of square brackets. So whenever you want to fix the order of component numbers in a compound number, you can make use of double colon. See, when you're using a single colon, for example, 51 mathematics is to 53 physics, this can be interchanged. Either 51 is to 53 or 53 is to 51. But if you are using double colon, then the order cannot be changed. See, 51 double colon 53 means only double 51 double colon 53. The reverse is not possible. So science. Then subdivisions. The common auxiliary subdivision, we got 2 different kinds of subdivisions. One is independent auxiliary tables. The other one is common auxiliary subdivisions. What is independent tables? For example, form, common auxiliary dictionary, encyclopedia, handbook, manual, bibliography. These are forms. Then places, then race, then time. They're all independent in the sense the numbers taken from these auxiliary tables can be either added to any UDC number, no problem, or these number can be used independently also. Fine, good. But in the case of dependent common auxiliary subdivisions, they are always to be added to a DDC number, UDC number. These numbers cannot be used independently as an individual number. For example, point of view, materials, persons, and personal characteristics. These are all dependent common auxiliary subdivisions. See, as Ranganathan introduced laws of indicator connecting symbols, in UDC also, we can come across many indicator digits. Please make a note of these indicator digits they are asking. For form, starting with 0, Race and nationality starting with equal symbol. Point of view .00. Materials -03. Place starting from 1 to 9 goes. Time within double quotes. Language preceded by equal sign. Race and nationality within bracket equal sign. Language simply equal sign. Persons -05. So the numbers. Then special auxiliaries. See, special auxiliaries are those headings which can be used either in a particular main class. So those numbers can be used only for a particular main class, or they can be used for a set of main classes. See, in UDC, we've got 3 different special auxiliaries. One is hyphen, which is used to indicate elements, components, properties. Then we have got point not series, which talks about activities, process, and operations. Then we have apostrophe symbol, which can be used to denote the compound subjects, something like parallel division. That means one set of numbers is given a particular place. The same digit, same numbers, the same order will be used in 2 or 3 places. So for all those purposes, we can make use of apostrophe. Good. Okay. In UDC, there is something called intercalation. That means you are going to make use of the auxiliary number in between the main numbers as an infix, as a kind of a item that can be inserted in between. For example, 622 is mining, 410 stands for Britain. You see how this number Britain is an auxiliary number. It's a common auxiliary of place 410. It is a indicated. What is indicated digit? Within the bracket you should write the space number. See here 622 420, that is mining Britain. 622.333 in between 420 is inserted. 622.34 we are inserting 410. So this kind of inserting the common isolates auxiliary numbers in the main number is called as intercalation. And for UDC, we have something called UDC Consortium, which functions at The Hague, Netherlands. And UDC Consortium, every year in the month of November, they bring out a publication called Extensions and Correction. See, whatever changes taking place in UDC, whatever corrections are incorporated, all those things are given use in this extensions and corrections. This particular annual publication has got 3 sections. One is comments and communications, revise UDC tables, and third, importantly, proposals. So what are proposals given by the people like you and me, those who are proposing ideas, their plus points, minus points, all those things are discussed in the third section of extensions and corrections. Okay. So that's the end of 5.2 and 5.3. And I'll come back to you with next slide and we'll discuss about 5.4. Okay. Thank you so much. Let's meet again.